everyone, and welcome to the Northcoders Graduation Showcase Extravaganza. That's everyone in the room and everyone joining us online as well. We're going to be taking questions afterwards, so keep your ears out. Keep your ears out? They're out anyway. Keep listening and have your questions ready to go at the end. This is one of the largest cohorts we have graduating. There's 9 project groups coming through. We're going to be doing them in blocks of 3. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to get started with our first group. This is Project Team Corrupted Spreadsheet. And you're going to be presenting us your work, which is called Cookaroo. Take it away, Stefan.
Well, thank you very much for this lovely introduction. I'm really excited. We are really excited to be here. I know that a lot of us like cooking, and very often we resort to online recipes, but we found there's some problems with that. The first problem is, well, if you are like me, then you probably have a browser with a folder and loads of bookmarks for recipes, and it's a little bit difficult to access them. It's just a little bit of a pain. And could you please show the next slide, James? Yeah, it's a little bit of a pain, and also if you use a recipe and if you change ingredients or amounts, you can't really edit it. So the next time you cook, you forgot everything that you've done before. So that's problem number 1. And then we have problem number 2. We all know these blog post like recipes, and you have to scroll through a wall of text and pictures to get to the very bottom where you can see the instructions. And so we thought about this, and we came up with Cookaroo, which solves all these problems. Cookaroo is a web application and an online recipe book. And basically what you can do, you can search for recipes online, import them, and save them in your account. You can edit and refine them in your account online. And most importantly, you can use them in an interactive way. We're really excited to show you our product. And by we, I mean the kitchen crew who made this product happen. And basically, let's meet the chefs. So I'm Stefan. Then we have Tiffany, who is going to talk about the tech stack. Marius will say a few words about challenges. And last but not least, we have Kev, who's taking over now to show you our product demo.
Thank you, Stefan. So, demo time indeed. I'm excited. I will be excited. This happened to us as well. Ah, here we go. This is Cookaroo. So welcome to Cookaroo. First of all, we've already logged in with Auth0. We didn't think you needed to watch logging in. That's my personal cookbook there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a recipe. So at the moment, this recipe will be added to our backend API. Now, I think most of us were pretty comfortable when we got onto backend because we got back to that security of unit testing. We were all happy to do that. This is going to give away my secret malt loaf recipe, which, to be fair, you may not want to try because it's just 1 cup of bran, and then we're going to cook it at 180 and probably have the driest malt loaf that you've ever had in your life. But we will be able to see the steps on screen and then add recipe, and then hopefully it will have landed in our backend API. That's a stock image, obviously, that's not malt loaf. Now what we can also do is you can go and have a look at our third-party API, and by using this third-party API you'd have access to literally tens of thousands of recipes. You can search these recipes by various category. We've looked at Korean, we'll look at French, and then now we're going to look at my personal favorite, Chinese food. And I think we're going to go for cauliflower fried rice. And let's just check. Yes, Steph can eat that. That's definitely vegan. It's definitely vegetarian. So we're going to save that to our recipe book. And then hopefully, when we go to recipes, it's there. Lovely. So there's the cauliflower rice. We'll bring up the cauliflower rice recipe. And yeah, this is the recipe format. Now, what we could do is we could edit it. So if you wanted to say, add a bit of extra garlic, maybe a bit of extra chili. In this case, we've not tried the recipe yet. We're going to go straight for play recipe. So here we have checkboxes. You can check your way through all of the ingredients to check that you've got everything. And then let's get cooking. And here we have step-by-step instructions, nice and simple, 1 step at a time. Obviously, you may want to go back. If you want to, you can. Or we can continue through our recipe. Or maybe perhaps somebody just came to the door. Well, we can take a break and we can get back going and pick up the recipe where we go. We'd obviously continue and make this wonderful recipe. And that's the end of the demonstration. So it's over to Tiff, talking about the tech stack.
Thank you, Kev. So for our project, we were, of course, really keen to try new technologies. As we've had some experience with SQL before, we really wanted to try out a non-relational database. So we chose MongoDB because of its JSON-like document structure. So we figured that this would make it really easy to deal with the responses that we get from our requests to our third-party APIs. And also, Mongo lets you change the structure of your documents. So we figured that this would give us flexibility and peace of mind in case we needed to change anything with the project further down the line. For our front end, we decided to use Svelte. We heard about Svelte while on the course. As it's quite new, it's got a lot of interest in the JS world, and so we thought we'd give it a try. And so Svelte compiles at build time, so that makes it really nice and quick, and we really enjoyed that. And a really nice feature of Svelte is that it gives you accessibility warnings. So it was really nice to have that to kind of give us a reminder to make our site as accessible as possible so that everyone can use it. And with the tech stack covered, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Marius so you can talk about some of the challenges we faced during our project.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Ross. Challenges. Yeah. Where be all the excitement, all the fun in a project with no obstacles? Of course, we had our challenges. It was fun, though, dealing with them. One constant challenge was spiking, learning, and implementing the new tech. Svelte, for instance, such an excellent tool to work with. We enjoyed it, but we discovered along the way that Svelte documentation is not very comprehensive. The number of packages is pretty low, and there are not too many built-in tools and libraries. That's understandable, though. It's still a young open-source JavaScript ecosystem with a growing community, yet the support still has a lot of room for improvement. All these drawbacks did not shadow our experience using Svelte at all. Then I could briefly mention minor technical issues with tools behaving differently on Ubuntu and Mac, which all know that. Then it's Zoom. We all love Zoom, probably, but kind of experienced Zoom fatigue, having some technical issues causing interruptions and limitations when we just wanted rapidly going into a meeting to brainstorm some ideas. Then maybe the most significant challenge for all of us, time constraint. Even though it has probably built up the pressure, it pushed us to give our best. Keeping a positive attitude and showing fantastic teamwork, we made it through. I just want to mention that we are keen and excited for our future projects to use some new tech like AWS, which is a great platform with an incredible array of tools with which you can integrate pretty much everything in your project. But doing the spiking, we realized that learning curve was too long to use it for this one. We would also like and are excited to extend the voice control and text-to-speech features for our app. That's pretty much all from me. I hand it over to Steph.
Well, thank you, Marius. So where do we finish off? What are our final thoughts or takeaways? The number one is spiking, which for all of us was a new method. And we really appreciated the value of it, this idea of being unafraid to dive into a new technology, understand how it works, and fail fast at the beginning of the project as opposed to later on. The second point, communication, frequent, open communication, and to just get to a point where everyone has the same understanding of the product and the process is almost half the battle. And the third one, flexibility. Plans are nothing, planning is everything, which is basically this whole idea of being determined about the goal, but flexible how to achieve it. We had days where our plans changed several times a day, and it's just about having the right mindset and attitude and the tools in place to cater for that. I definitely can speak from a personal experience. In the first week, I was quite nervous about constant changes, and it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But later on, the teamwork I think worked really well, and you made me feel more comfortable. And then later on, it was really easy to implement new changes along the way. With that being said, at the beginning of the project, we wanted to solve a problem. We think we solved it, and we're really happy and proud of what we achieved. And we're really excited to take these skills and use them in our future jobs. That's it from us. If you have any questions, fire away. Thank you.
Amazing amazing job there from these guys. Any questions in the room first? We'll open it out. Don't be shy. Anything at all? Yes.
Maybe a bit of a straightforward question, but why
Yes.
a kangaroo?
Kangaroo, excellent question. Well, at some point we decided on the name Kookaroo, and then later we found out that it's an extinct kangaroo species, so we thought, why not making it our spirit animal?
And at the back, we've got another question.
How did you find learning Svelte in comparison to learning React like you do on the course?
Oh, Svelte's just amazing. We loved Svelte. It's so cool. It kind of like takes elements of React, but it also adds in sort of DOM elements that you're used to. So it kind of looks like HTML. It's really easy to read, but then behaves like React. So yeah, very, very little, virtually nothing bad to say about Svelte. Definitely using it again.
Big fan then.
Yeah, massive fan.
Okay. We've got some questions coming in. Okay, we've got a question from Lee Barrett. How did you like using Mongo versus SQL? Question to anyone, I think.
Yeah, I really liked it, and because I don't know, I think not everyone has experienced a non-relational database, but the way you query stuff is a little bit easier. It's like less constraining. You have to be like less exact about your statements. And I really like that, and especially for our use case, the recipes, which are like nested object and arrays, made it really easy to query like stuff. So definitely the right choice, and for a similar project, we would definitely use a non-relational database again.
Did you have any look at any other non-relational databases, or you were just like pretty set on MongoDB
Well,
from the start?
MongoDB or Firebase, but then eventually we decided on MongoDB.
The models looked very, very simple compared to the SQL models, so it's really nice. The models are very readable.
Yeah. We got any others coming in from online? No. Any more in the room? Okay. Well done, guys. Amazing presentation. Round of applause.
Thank you.
We're just going to take a small break before our next presentation from Cold Front. or welcome if you're just tuning in now. We are going on to our next project. The group is called Cold Front, and their project name is Dog Tags. So be ready for some cute pictures. I'm going to take you to a remote stream with Sam, who will be introducing the project.
Hi everyone, my name's Sam and I'd like to introduce you to our team Cold Front. Cold Front is myself, Paul, Lewis and Ben, and today we're going to share with you the result of all our hard work and collaboration over these last couple of weeks. We really have all found this to be an enjoyable, challenging and ultimately rewarding experience, and we're here today to demonstrate and present to you our app, Dog Tags. Often the apps that we keep on our phones are useful and help us to navigate everyday life. But sometimes apps are just for fun. You may use apps for learning useful facts, say, or storing your favourite photos. What about if you're a dog lover too? So now I'm getting a little bit specific, and this is because the audience that we imagine for our app includes just such a person. Someone who might very well be interested in using photo recognition to identify the breed of any dog they meet just by taking a photo. Our app allows you to take a photo of a dog and via machine learning technology to then evaluate the most likely breed of that dog. In addition to this, Dog Tags will send you interesting facts about the specific dog breed and incorporate these into a card along with your unique photo. Dog Tags allows you to store your collection of photo cards, so you'll have a history of all the different dogs you've met, photographed, and the information you've gathered. So I've told you a little bit about the app, but we would love you to see it in action. So I'm going to hand over to Ben, who's going to lead us into the demonstration.
Thanks, Sam. The inspiration for our app came from, well, dogs. What more do I need to say? Dogs are great. If there's any cat people here, then we best leave that argument for another time. I had loads of fun testing this app with my dog Arnie, who gets a starring role in the demo, so keep an eye on for that. We decided on this app because we like the idea of using machine learning and wanted to challenge ourselves with new tech that none of us had used before. We had seen apps that could identify other things, so we had the idea to build dog tags. We aim to get an accurate percentage return for the breed of dog and a list of characteristics for the dog. With that said, let's move on to our demo. When the app is loaded for the first time, the app will inform the user that it will need permission access to the camera and give them the option to allow or deny access. This is the home screen of our React Native front end, where we mount the camera component and display to the user a full camera preview and our navigation bar. The Dog Tags button on the right of the navigation bar shows our brand name, and when tapped, it displays some helpful information for the user about how to use the app. This is where we take the picture. Once taken, we see our loading screen. At this point, our TensorFlow.js image classifier is making a dog breed prediction based on the photo. The card then appears containing our picture, the prediction, a stock photo of the dog, and the characteristics of the dog. Stock photo and dog characteristics are retrieved from our MongoDB database using our Express API. There's also a delete button if there was a problem with the picture that was taken. We can tap the camera button to be taken back to the preview screen if there are more dogs we would like to take a snap of, or if we would like to get a better picture. Here, we can tap the history button to view a gallery of images that have previously been taken. In gallery view, we can scroll depending on how many pictures have been taken. Tapping on one of the pictures opens up the full card for that dog with the information that was previously stored. As you can see, navigation between cards in the gallery is fluid and makes it easy for the user to show off their pictures. If we decide to delete one of the cards, we can also do that here. So we hope you enjoyed our demo. I'm now going to pass over to Lewis to talk about the tech stack we used.
Thanks, Ben. So our mobile front end was written using React Native, using Expo. We decided to use Expo because the Expo SDK provides lots of useful libraries for doing things like accessing the device camera and accessing the device's file system, which was necessary for our app. We also use those technologies because Expo and React Native both have really excellent documentation online. TensorFlow.js is the machine learning library that we went with to implement the core image classification functionality of our app. This runs on our Express backend using TensorFlow's Node.js library. Using TensorFlow.js, we were able to start with an existing general purpose image classification model and then customize it customize it to a more specific use case. That was done through a process called transfer learning. We found that this was a relatively beginner-friendly approach to solving this kind of problem, which was suitable for our level of experience with machine learning. I'm going to now pass over to Paul, who can tell us a bit more about our tech stack and a little bit about our development process.
Thanks, Lewis. So we went with MongoDB for our database. It's a non-relational database that's hosted on the Mongo Atlas cloud server. And we decided to go with non-relational for a couple of reasons. So one is that it allows us easy updates to schemas and fields, but also our dog objects that we're storing in the database have no relationship with each other. So it seemed to be the best fit for our needs. A few of the, just to talk about a few of the challenges that we faced along the way. So firstly, we were going to load the do the classification of the dog image within our React Native front end. What we found though was that doing it this way would increase the size of our app too much, so more than we would have hoped for, and this was because we'd be loading the classifier data set within the front end, and also it would require us to install MobileNet on the user's phone. So we overcame this by moving that functionality into our backend instead, and we found that actually by doing so we weren't increasing the time taken from taking a picture to getting the prediction, so we were quite happy with that and that there was no impact on user experience. Another challenge that we faced was in communicating with MongoDB, in that we found that we couldn't directly communicate from React Native to the database. That was mainly due to the limitations of Expo and its compatibility with third-party SDKs. So what we did instead was we managed to use some of the experience that we learned during the back-end phase of Northcoders to set up our Express API to handle that communication for us. We set ourselves up to handle these challenges by doing quite a lot of spiking before beginning the project. This was really useful for us to better understand what tech options would be available to us and for our particular needs as well. We also incorporated a lot of agile working practices into our daily routines. So, for example, we would have a morning stand-up, regular meetings, and also a combination of pair and mob programming. And mob programming in particular helped us a lot during the beginning phase, where we found there to be some installation issues, but we managed to overcome the challenges that we faced. And in doing so, by using these practices, it really taught us just how valuable they can be. So what is the future for dog tags? We would like to scale the app up and implement some location services that would point the user towards rescue centres, local rescue centres, and also registered dog breeders. We think this would add a really great new layer to the app, because it would be beneficial for the dogs that are in these centres and also provide a much more rewarding and rich user experience as well. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you to everyone from ColdFront and also joining us remotely. I hope you heard that round of applause. Yeah? Can they hear me? Yes, they can. Cool. Just while we wait for some questions, are there any immediate questions from the audience? No? I did have one quick question. You've got a lot of new technologies here, which is great news. Was there a particular favourite amongst the group, or?
That's a good question.
We're going to go positive with favourite. Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed using MongoDB, so it was the first time that I've used a non-relational database, and I liked its integration with Mongo Atlas Cloud, and I found querying the database to be quite a straightforward process, so that was definitely something I enjoyed.
Cool. We've got some questions coming in from online. Philippa Bushell has said, has this experience piqued your interest in machine learning? Good question. That can go to anyone.
I would say definitely. We found that we were able to do quite a lot without that much knowledge of machine learning using TensorFlow. I mean, we had to learn a bit about it, but not that much. And I would be interested to learn a bit more and see if we could do even more interesting things with it.
Was it quite a steep learning curve for the machine learning?
Initially, yeah. Yeah.
But easy once you sort of hit that first.
Basically, yeah.
Any other questions from the room at all? Yes?
If you did this again, would you do anything differently?
We've thought about that. We were discussing that earlier, and we sort of decided that we liked the approach that we took and the technology that we used. I think for me personally, if I was going to maybe use a different technology, it would mainly just be for the sake of getting experience in that technology. But I think for what we've achieved with the app, what we did use worked really well. So there's nothing that I would say we should have used this instead.
So you did everything perfectly?
Basically,
yeah.
It was just the best, yeah.
And we've got another question in the room.
Are there any technologies that you planned on using that you decided against later on?
Not really. I mean, we did spike a lot of different technologies, and we went through a phase of really wanting to look into using Svelte native. But yeah, like I sort of touched on during the spiking part, it wasn't the best fit for our needs. And it's such a new technology as well. We thought we're kind of dealing with a lot with all the machine learning aspects. We kind of wanted to maybe limit further non-essential issues that might crop up.
We've got a few questions coming in from online as well, so go to the screen here. Jacob Ash says, how was your experience using Expo? If you had more time, would you have moved away from a JavaScript bridge-based app framework? Ooh, that was a mouthful.
I think Expo works pretty well for this because you've got the built-in libraries for the camera and Expo file system. Maybe if we wanted to change the functionality of our app slightly, we could have done that, but I think it works well for what we did.
Great, and we've just got one more question coming in from online. David Jumble says, what happens if you try to analyse photos of a man that looks like a dog or a dog that looks like a man? This was an inevitable question, I think. I think we all saw this one coming.
There are 18 different dogs that the app can, that the image classifier can return as a result. So it would just be whichever one you look the most like.
Be honest, did you take photos of yourself?
We've taken photos of everyone in the
every
office.
Single person.
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. Okay, I think that just about wraps it up for this group. Another big round of applause for Cold Front.
Well done, Lauren. Well done.
And we're just going to take a short break before we see our next group. Hello and welcome back. We have our third project group joining us. This is 418 with their project Cami. Take it away, 418.
Hello everyone, we're Team 418 and for our project we've created a web app called Cami. Our team, next slide please. Our team consists of myself, Emily, Monica and Shay. The aim of the site was to create a place for small local artists to advertise themselves, to be commissioned, and a place for users to sort through different artists that live in the local area and are taking commissions in the local area and just find an artist really. I'm going to pass over to Emily who's going to run us through how our app works.
Hi, thanks for that, Adam. First, we're going to demo our artist sign-up journey. It'll first take you to the homepage of Cami on a normal main browser. Our artists will click the Clear CTA at the very top, enter their unique credentials, and create an account. We'll go on to the Add Watermark feature in a bit. Here they can add an image locally. That was a whole learning curve. They can also select which medium they would like to class their artwork as in order for users to be able to find them later on. This is an example of the artist profile gallery where they can showcase all their art and have all their information like contact details, where they're based and reviews. This is an example of being able to see the image a bit more clearly. At the bottom there, they can select how to showcase their image on the main homepage. If they want to add the watermark, they can go and edit their profile, click this toggle for the watermark, and all their property is protected with the Cami logo. Because we all know how important it is to support local artists and make sure their property is protected. In our next demo, we'll show you the user journey on a mobile web browser. On our next video. So here you can see the homepage again. We've implemented an infinite scroll, so however many art pieces there are, you'll be able to see them forever and ever and ever, hopefully. They can go on to filter specific mediums. They can go on to filter specific locations. Here we're filtering from, we're looking for paintings and for artists in Chester. You can go on to delete these filters and it returns you back to the homepage. Now I'm going to move on to Shay, who's going to talk about our tech stack on the back end.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. I'm Shay. For the back end, initially, well, we used Jest to actually test everything, obviously writing everything in JavaScript. And we hosted the backend API server and the front end on using a Amazon EC2 web server. Could we get to the next slide, please? For everything else, we initially planned on using Firebase as this was a non-relational database, something we hadn't used before. And also it was pretty attractive because it was minimal setup. We wouldn't have to do much. That's always nice to have. We managed to get it working, but when we were discussing through it, we decided that it probably wasn't the best suited thing for our app, because if we wanted to expand and add some of the future, features that we were thinking of in the future, a relational database would be better. So we ended up going with a PSQL database made accessed via a Node, a Node.js app made using Express. As I said earlier, this is hosted on EC2. That's from AWS. AWS was really interesting to use because it's serverless, which is what a lot of companies are moving into. But it comes with its own little problems and glitches where like you have to do a lot of authentication, which isn't well documented. The rest of the service is really well documented, but that wasn't. We managed to work our way through these using AWS Amplify. But yeah, that was more or less the back end. Moving on, Monica will tell you about the front end.
Thank you, Shay. Hi, everyone. I'm Monica, and I'm going to tell you something more about our front end. So we used React, Material UI, and Bootstrap, utilizing AWS cloud services. And as you know, we used React during our course, so we were quite familiar with it. So we wanted to slick it and use some of frameworks. So we went with Material UI and Bootstrap because that combination allowed us to create fast, simple, and scalable front-end for our web app. This approach was very efficient, and it needed less development time, and it gave us a high-quality product. We like the fact that React allows to write modular and clean code with breaking the project into reusable components. It's flexible and easy to maintain. Finally, it's an open source technology with a rich ecosystem, including, for example, Node.js that we used for our backend, as well as a large number of specific open source libraries listed on NPM. With React, we used Material UI and Bootstrap because they offer a large library of components, and it was especially helpful when we were time constrained and couldn't spend time building all components from scratch. There's also a large community of users providing external support here. The disadvantage is that those frameworks offer certain styles that out of the box that we found hard to change sometimes when we wanted to or needed to fit our design. For storing our data, images for a gallery, we used Amazon S3. And this service facilitates highly scalable, secured, and low latency data storage from the cloud. And finally, we used AWS Amplify package, which allowed us to quickly and easily work with other AWS services that we used. We considered using Vue and Svelte as well, but in little time that we had, we decided it would be difficult to deliver a high quality and good-looking end product. And now I will hand over back to Adam, who will talk you through some extra features that we would implement. Thank you.
So what's the future for Cami? Well, so first of all, we plan on adding e-commerce to our app, so users can interact directly and pay directly the artists that they're wanting to commission from. Also, we're planning on adding a messaging service so they can arrange all of that. We're also planning on implementing a mapping API so we can visualize the areas that the different artists are wanting to work in and the ranges they're willing to travel. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the extra features. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. Does anyone got any questions?
Over my way then.
Oh, I forgot one bit. I forgot a bit.
Thank you so much to 418. I actually have an initial question if anyone wants to answer it. How did you do the watermarking feature? How was that implemented?
With a lot of difficulty.
Can you elaborate?
We ended up using a pre-built package called Watermark.js. However, it's not made for use with React. It accesses the DOM directly, which React disagrees with quite a lot. And we ended up having to have a couple of different workarounds. It's also part of why we had to store data in S3 in a public folder rather than individual private vaults, which was the initial plan because that's more secure. It was a bit of a journey, but we managed it in the end.
A fun journey.
Yes, it was an interesting one at the very least.
Interesting. Okay, that's what we'll label it as.
Yes, it did.
Something that we planned for taking like an hour or two.
Yep.
Just like, yeah, a little side thing. That'll be really quick.
Yeah.
1 week later. Any questions from the room about this project? Yes, back.
I know you chose React a lot for time differences, but were there any other reasons why you chose it over something like Vue, for example?
Yeah, we did Spike, Vue, and Svelte at the very beginning. We liked both Vue and Svelte, but seeing the learning curve as well as the time restraint we had, and being an online art gallery, we needed to look good. So it was more of a group decision that we chose to go down a route that we were more familiar with, that we were able to know that we'd be able to create a better fine-tuned product at the end, rather than, like, it would be great to learn Vue and Svelte, and I know that all of us will continue to go on and learn those, but for the project itself, we knew that we had to create something that looked good in order to give justice to Cami.
Cool, I think we had another question down in the front somewhere. Yes.
How did you implement being able to upload photos locally?
Another one thing that was a massive pain.
S3 was so fun. We'll say that much.
God, yeah. It wasn't S3 and the uploading itself that was a nightmare. It was the security issues. So we would manage to upload it. Everything would be fine. And it'd work for like a few minutes, and then the security key would expire, and we would then have to just, I guess, do it again. So it took a while. Do you want to carry on?
No, go ahead.
So we then had to mess around with the security settings for ages, and it just was a real pain. Yeah.
It was that when I was saying that there was stuff that wasn't well documented, this is what I was talking about. There's so much documentation on AWS services because it's so widely used, and it's great documentation. But when it comes to what you need to authorize, there's very little relevant that's easy to find. So we had to just explore around, try all the different. We noticed a lot of the issues we were having with AWS was with authorization. So when it came to S3, we just went on every single thing that we could think to authorize, and we were like, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Yep. And then eventually we hit it.
Policies and all that.
Yeah.
A fun learning experience.
It was.
I think we've got one question coming in from online. Yeah, Lee Barrett. Did you enjoy using AWS? Is it something you would look to learn more of in future?
AWS was great. If it had a better documentation for its security features, then it would have been brilliant. Loads of features, easy to use.
And just serverless, easy to expand.
And really expansive, yeah.
It's so good. Like, it's got over 200 features. Yeah. I ended up looking into a bunch of them afterwards anyway because it was just interesting. And it's like really cool, but you need to, it's got a steep learning curve. That's all it is. Yeah.
But you did it.
Yeah, we did it.
All right, we're all, yeah, that's all the questions. Has anyone got any last minute ones? Another big round of applause for Team 418. We are going to take a slightly longer break now after our first three groups. Join us again at 2:30. We'll be seeing the next three groups. Bye-bye.
afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon and welcome to our second session of project presentations on this lovely Friday afternoon. Thank you so much to all of you joining us, friends, family, staff, students, and any hiring partners out there who might be watching too. You are very welcome. We've seen 3 fantastic apps so far, and I'm here to present 3 more very exciting apps from our next 3 groups. They have all been inspired by very different things. They've all been implemented in very different ways, and they've got a really interesting and varied tech stack behind them all. So I really hope you enjoy their hard work and dedication. I think you'll see has absolutely paid off. So without further ado, I will hand over to our first group of the session, Team Rapper, with their app Mapper. Take it away.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We're Team Rapper. That's me, Rory, Anisha, Paul, and Aaron. Next slide, please. Our project is Mapper, which is a location-based AR web app that helps you locate your friends. You create or join a group of people and are updated with each other's live location. You can choose to view people's location on a 2D map or by using your camera combined with AR technology. This app is aimed at people who are attending an event, for example, a festival, where they are likely to step away from the group at some point. A big concern people might have when attending an event is their safety. So with Mapper, they can at least be safe in the knowledge their friends are aware of where they are. Next slide, please. The problem it solves is ensuring you and your friends can find each other should you or they get lost. In particular, the AR functionality helps users better visualize exactly where people are located, as opposed to just seeing a marker on a map. This app now gives meaning to when friends say they are at front left or by the burger stand, when dozens exist at a festival, for example. Now you can see exactly where they say they are. Next up, Anisha will talk you through a demo of our app.
Thanks, Rory. So once you, next slide, please. Right, so once you open the Mapper app, you'll arrive at the home page where you can choose your username, create a group, or join an existing one. Here we're joining an already created group, which will add your username and current location to that group's data in our Firebase database and save your username and group name in local storage. On our group page, we can see a list of our group members and how far away they are from our current position. From here, you can go onto the group chat room, which will display messages in real time sent by members of your group in order for you to keep in contact and provide updates on your position. Now let's find them. From the group page, we have options for both 2D and AR maps. So let's start with our 2D map. Here we can see the icons representing us and our group members. We're the brown marker, they're the blue one. As you can see, these markers update your longitude and latitude as you move, so you can follow them even if the group members you're trying to find are also moving. You can tell which group member is represented by which marker by tapping on it, which will bring up their username. So now that we're close, we can go back to the group page and select the AR map to get a better judge of their current location. Once we've enabled the app to use our camera, we can see that the AR map shows the other members of your group as different coloured 3D markers, which can be seen through walls and objects to allow for better navigation. The colours on both maps are identical, so you can tell who is who based on this. Here, our friend is represented by the blue cube that we can see off into the distance, the colour matching that from the previous 2D map. Like the 2D map, these markers also update as you and your group members move, so no need to worry about your friend wandering off on your way to find them. You can still easily follow their 3D marker. As you get closer to your target, you can see that the marker gets bigger in size, representing how close or far away you are from their current position. The exit button in the bottom right corner will allow you to exit out of AR mode and back to the group page once you found your group member. And that is Mapper. Hope you enjoyed the demo. Now on to Aaron, who will tell you about our tech stack.
Hello, I'm Aaron. I'm going to go through the tech stack, the choices, and basically kind of how things work behind the scenes. So as you can see from the slide there, we'll start. So Firebase, we use that to specifically handle the receiving and storing of the user's information and providing back the group information as it is updated. The React we use to deal with the user interface and handle our front-end requirements, so any validation conditional logics. Leaflet in the middle there we use to render the 2D map and to iterate through the group data and place the markers on the map. Geolocation API, I will mention, though it's not really a sort of tech choice per se, but the geolocation API is what we used, and the React hook geolocation to receive the user device information, so latitude and longitude. ARJS and A-frame, where we used to actually create the AR environment over the top of the user's camera feed, and then populate it with the entities or the markers from the group. And finally, Firestore, we added in quite last minute, very similar to Firebase. So there was some discussion in the first part about whether we would use Firebase or Firestore. We initially went with Firebase for the real-time elements of it and the live locations being updated. We ended up using Firestore to try it out for the chat functionality. Next slide. So I'll briefly just talk through what happens with the demo. But once you successfully join a group, or you've attempted to join the group, on the left-hand side, input your details. A validation check is then run against, or a query sent to Firebase to validate the user selection. So if you attempt to, say, create a group that already exists or join a group that doesn't, you'll get error messages. Once you have successfully completed the login information, you will be presented with the group page button, which will then allow you to go on and to access the actual features. So once you are logged in, or you've joined or created a group, we will then, a geolocation component activates, and that will send periodically information to Firebase and store that against your username, as you can see on the right-hand side. So in the group, then in the username, and then your position, longitude, and latitude is stored. We can then grab that when we need it for it. Next slide. I will just briefly mention we did implement local storage due to the fact we don't want people having to log in and out. If you put your phone away to enjoy the event or whatever you are doing, you don't want to then have to keep typing in the same username and login. That's obviously a bit redundant. So we've used local storage to basically avoid that. So provided you're not using private browsing or anything, it will store your username and group name, allowing you to just access the features straight away. So ARJS and A-frame sort of in conjunction is how we've made the markers, so to speak. So as I briefly mentioned before, it creates a scene over the top of the camera feed, allowing the placements of the markers. Now, these markers will take a GPS entity position, which is comprised of the longitude and latitude that we've pulled down from the Firebase database, and then allows us to place those in a 3D space. Using a GPS camera function for it, we allow to also know where the phone is. The latitude and longitude from the group allow you to know where the marker is, and then A-frame and ARJS take over the rest to know where in the 3D space of the camera to put it and update it to as required. To make it usable, I think we kind of briefly mentioned on this as well, stuff like making the markers increase or decrease in size, also limiting the range of which you can see the markers. Obviously, past a certain point, the marker would be too small. The alternative would be having full-size markers at any distance, which would then become very cluttered and unwieldy to actually work out what's going on. Just briefly with Leaflet, obviously it's a very usable piece of technology, but that basically just renders the map and then renders a 2D map for the device, and then we'll iterate through every member of the group, placing a marker based on their longitude and latitude, and then updating as it goes. So the geolocation will update periodically. We basically based it around time and movement. So if your position changes, you update your map, and if you're not moving, so this was the kind of movie the come to was it will just base it on time. So we would first a set interval every 5 seconds, it will iterate and update the position. Last slide for me anyway. Last two, so yeah, the chat function as we mentioned, obviously a little bit there. The Firestore, a lot more structured than Firebase. Obviously Firebase is based just big JSON, but the Firestore is a lot more structured and usable for the message side of it, which was interesting to see sort of the differences between the two. And then the final one, which is very mathy to be fair, I won't go into that, but the distance is actually worked out by taking the longitude and latitude of each member, so the user, and then a member of the group, and then calculating from just on longitude and latitude the actual distance in meters for that. Yeah, I think I'll hand over to Paul now to go over some of the issues.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm now going to go through some of the issues that we encountered. Okay, so initially when exiting the AR map, it would generate a refresh, which would cause the data to be lost, which would then require the user to log back in. We were able to resolve this by utilising the local storage. We also experienced challenges using the A-frame render library, as we had to append the A-frame tags into the actual HTML body. We found that AR.js wasn't such a great fit with React, but as we tested it as a proof of concept and we knew that we could make it work, we stuck with it and persevered. As Aaron has touched on, like handling the location data also posed a challenge. So we had to decide on the best way to handle that data with time, location, and interval that was available to us. So we opted for a combination of time and position, being that if the position didn't change, it would be updated every 5 seconds using a timer. So we completed our MVP with time to spare. So we're able to implement a chat function, and that, which was one of our extras. That also had its own set of challenges, mainly around interacting with Firestore and accessing that group information. So we have only just scratched the surface really with this kind of tech, and with the depth of A-frame, there's much more available. Going forward, we would have liked to add QR code generation for group access, a compass, custom markers, and a user page that would include group management. Thank you. That's Mapper.
Well done. It's so lovely to hear that real round of applause for you. You absolutely deserve it. A really fantastic app. Even in the comments, we've already had people saying how they wish this was around when they were at Glastonbury last home round. I can really see a really big user base for this sort of thing. While we wait for some other questions to come in, I have had a question through other channels asking how you found integrating AR in a React app, if any of you would like to answer that.
Yeah, I'm happy to field that one. So React, yeah, so with AR.js, in the first instance, we implemented proof of concepts for each individual component, which in hindsight was probably where we made a mistake in the fact of we could make it work, and we had a proof of concept for the AR individually, but React components do not mesh well. So the way that A-frame works is it has scene tags, which React reads as components, well, as unique sort of component tags, which then doesn't render anything. So I think as Paul briefly touched on before, we have well, to put it shortly, not very well, it doesn't work very well, but using appending of HTML to the body, and using that through a component, we managed to make it work in the end.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Aaron. We've had another question in the chat from Lee. Did you find any tech stack alternatives you would like to use given more time in the future?
Yeah, so there was an option to use React Native with Vero, I think it's called, Vero AR, but the issue with that was that not everyone has a Mac, and in order to develop that, I think it would have took a lot of setup time that could have eaten into the time that we already had, which was already not very much. So that's something that if we were to do it again, we'd maybe try React Native instead.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Rory. Are there any further questions, either in person or in the chat? Okay, I think, oh, let me just check. Right, in which case, thank you so much again, Team Rapper, a really fantastic app. I hope you're really proud of yourselves, you should be. We are going to take a quick break while we get the other team up and running. See you shortly. Thank you, goodbye. Good afternoon once again. Welcome back. We have another very exciting app to show you. Without further ado, I will hand you over to Team Titan and their app Charity. Take it away.
Hi everyone, we're Team Titan, and today, sorry, next slide please. Today we've got Mercedes, Iqbal, Sejong, Ben, and myself, Nadia. Next slide please. We've created a charity app, which is an app where organisations can post volunteering opportunities and volunteers can go out and apply and find those opportunities easily. We thought of this idea because through personal experience, if you don't know the right person or you don't know where to look, it can be really, really hard to find this. And we wanted to create a solution where we remove as many of those barriers between getting people to be able to volunteer as possible. So I'm just going to hand over to Mercedes now to do the demo.
Hi, I'm Mercedes and I will talk you through a demo of our app. We created our app to be used in mobile devices using React Native and Expo. On our app, we have the option to log in or sign up, either as a volunteer, fill in their details and interests, or as an organization to list opportunities. Today, we are going to show the volunteer journey. Users can log in using their username and their password. We make sure this is unique. Once logged in, we are redirected to the homepage. We have a search bar and also a sort by options, either by most recent opportunities listed or starting date. Here on the homepage, user can browse to all the opportunities listed by different organizations. This uses a MySQL query to fetch the data from Amazon Relational Database Services, known as RDS. Each opportunity has an event name, organization name, who posted, and the starting date. If we want to know more information, we click on the event where we have an option to apply. Here we can see the details and the requirement. We have a tab on the left to filter categories by community support, mental health, environment. I love animal. Let's say I want to filter by animal categories. I click on the event, read the description, and found local animal rescue center is quite interesting. So I click on apply and I submit my application. Once I press on submit, I have a successful message and I can review. Going back to the menu, I can go to applications to review all my applications and their status. We can see that local animal rescue is pending because all the applications by default, the initial status is pending. We also have on the menu tab a profile section. It allows us to change our username, avatar URL, and tick or untick the DBS check and driving license checkboxes. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration and I'm going to pass you on to Sonjon. She will talk about the backend tech that we have used. Thank you.
Thanks, Mercedes. In terms of backend, we chose Amazon Web Service because it is one of the most secure cloud providers and is widely used in industry. AWS was not covered in our course, but we decided to challenge ourselves by learning a new technology. So for the database, we use RDS, a relational database, because we wanted to use SQL database. So we connected to the database on the DB instance using MySQL Workbench and stored users, organizations, and opportunities information in RDS. We use Lambda function and API gateway in order to make HTTP request, which can receive and pass the request onto Lambda, interacting with the database and then sending the response back to the users. Finally, we deploy this through Cloudia because Cloudia allows for easy deployment of our Node.js project. I'll now pass on to Iqbal to talk about front-end tech.
Thank you, Saojong. We used React Native because it's widely used and it's a progression on React that we learned in the course. Also, there were a number of frameworks that we could use as well, which were, one of them was UI Kitten. Because this is for volunteering and we wanted to make it as smooth as possible, that is the reason why we used the UI Kitten framework, so that it gave a uniform feeling also when you're navigating. That was also based on Expo, so that any changes in the code, we could see the changes actually on the screen straight away, rather than having to reload. And finally, we used Axios for actually getting the data from the backend. So I'll now pass you over to Ben, who will go through some of the obstacles in the project.
Thanks, Iqbal. Yeah, next slide, please. Sound like Chris Whitty. So in terms of issues, it's fair to say we've encountered a few sticking points during the development of this app. So in particular, we found the initial hurdle of setting up both the front end and back end took longer than we'd all expected. We encountered several errors, which took more hours of reading through documentation than I care to go into too much detail about today. But I will talk briefly about 3 areas where we encountered issues. So in terms of the back-end side of things, using AWS, we found there was a very steep learning curve setting that up, which I know some of the other groups have alluded to so far today. There are so many platforms and tools available, and the documentation is so detailed that although I'm sure that's really helpful as you become more familiar with AWS, I think it's fair to say it's not very kind of new user friendly. However, we did find ourselves behind on where we wanted to be kind of after the first week of programming, really, but we used our daily stand-ups and our Kanban board to kind of move people within the team around and get some extra resource from those working on the front end, and together we kind of got there in the end. And after we got past that initial hurdle, I think setting up the back end went pretty smoothly after that. In terms of the front end, we had encountered some issues with React navigation. So as anyone who has used it will know, it's a separate library to React Native. And we had a long-running issue with our navigation being out of sync with the rendering of our UI as we were trying to develop the app. So essentially the UI was there, it was looking great, but trying to navigate within that UI was kind of failing at various points. And solving that took a kind of huge chunk of our time. We spent a lot of time getting kind of very familiar with the documentation. But ultimately, after some mob programming with the whole group, we found an alternative way of doing that, which solved the issue. And I think that was a kind of great learning point for us, because although persistence with one method is sometimes the answer, as with our issues with AWS, we kind of learned that other times it's worth looking at alternatives when something's not working for you, or at least having another member of the team looking at alternatives while you still try to solve the issue. And that way you might kind of get there more quickly. Finally, just briefly, with React Native, during our spiking, we found that it felt reasonably familiar, having learned React during the course. So it felt like a kind of safe choice when we were intending to build a mobile app and we were using tech that was kind of novel for us. For kind of every other bit of tech that we used really was like that. However, when we kind of got into the nuts and bolts of it and began building the app, it became quite clear it was pretty different from React, and that caused some difficulties. So just as an example, one of the libraries we used, UI Kitten, which was new to us, as were many of the libraries, and we had to be really careful with the dependencies we used with that. So UI Kitten required using a specific version of React Native, and we faced multiple errors before we kind of realized that was the case and worked that out. But I think overall, we thoroughly enjoyed the learning experience, and we feel pretty confident using these technologies, having only started properly using them a couple of weeks ago. So those are the issues we encountered. I'll just hand over to Nadia to finish our presentation.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, in closing, I'd just like to say we're really proud of what we managed to achieve in quite a short period of time. We've learned a huge amount during this project, not just about the technologies that we've chosen to explore, but also about how to work as part of a team and how beneficial mob programming and agile practices are as part of our everyday working sort of timetable. In terms of future functionality, if we were to continue working on this app, I think there's a huge amount of scope. We'd love to implement something where you could potentially see opportunities distributed by distance on a map around you, that sort of thing. but yeah, I mean, there's loads of places to go. Wish we had more time to do it. But yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Fab, thank you. Really fantastic. Thank you so much, Team Titan. We do indeed have a couple of questions that have popped up in the chat. I'm going to join two together. So one of our staff members have asked, how would you feel about approaching an AWS project in the future? And along with that, Juliet asks, what tech would you like to use again? So 2 questions in one.
Shall I take the AWS one? Oh, too quickly. I can try and answer. I'll try and answer both. I think approaching AWS would feel a lot more confident this time. I think that there is just that initial hurdle of trying to get through the documentation, and just there were just little things that we were just struggling with that were just kind of erroring the whole thing out. And it did take kind of all 5 of our heads. So it was a good job we had a team of 5 to kind of get to get through that really. In terms of technologies you'd like to use again, I spent a lot of time on the back end because of those issues we'd faced. So I think I'd like to spend some time with React Native, having looked at the code and helped a little bit in the last couple of days. It seems, really interesting and intuitive kind of once you've got to grips with it, and obviously looks great in terms of the front end. So that's what I'd like to do. Ideally, I'd like to just avoid using AWS altogether, but I'm sure that probably isn't an option. So we'll see.
I'd love to jump in. There's something that I really want to use, but we just decided that it wasn't sensible with the time constraints, which looking back was definitely a good option. I really wanted to use Flutter, the Google platform, to do mobile apps. It looks so beautiful. The UI is built in. It just looks gorgeous and like really intuitive to use. But unfortunately, we would have had to learn Dart, an entirely new programming language. So yeah, maybe something to explore in the future.
Brill, thank you very much. Another question from Harry. What lessons did you learn throughout your project?
So for me, definitely the biggest lesson that I learned was probably pretty early on, like Ben sort of alluded to when talking about the issues, is there were a couple of times where we really, really wanted to make something work. And we just kept troubleshooting and kept trying to get it to work, and it would take us longer than probably it should have for us to move on and either try doing something completely different or trying a completely different approach to making something similar work. So that's for me. I don't know if anyone else has got anything they want to say.
Okay, thank you so much, Team Titan. It's really great when an app can be inspired by personal things that you found as you go about your day-to-day business. So really great case for this app. Well done, team. We will take another quick break before we come on to our third and final group of the day. Of the session. We've still got 3 more after this. But could we finish by giving another virtual or in-person round of applause for Team Titan? Well done, everyone. Welcome back, everyone, for our third app of this session. Without further ado, I will hand you straight over to Team Ternary with their app, Melodia. Take it away.
Hey there, I'm Ikra. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We are Team Melodia. On the team, we've got myself, Ethan, Juliet, and Andrea. So, if there's anything we can agree on, it's that music is definitely an integral part of life. Whether you're a jazz fan, a metalhead, a country lover, or maybe even a hip-hop stan, music unites us, soothes us, and engages us in a way that nothing else can really. So based on this, we created an exciting and highly addictive music app to test your music knowledge. Sarah Banda was a very popular 1990s Italian music trivia show and the inspiration for our app, really. An October 2020 to January 2021 survey of UK adults aged 16 and older found that 39% played games on their mobile phone, which is up by 23% in the previous year. So based on this fact, we created a fun multiple choice music guessing mobile app game. I will now pass you over to Juliet, who will give you a demonstration of the app itself.
Hello. So let's take a look at our app. So this is Melodia. Here the user is inputting their username and we're counting down to our first round. Okay, I think we all know this one. The first one is Hips Don't Lie. Correct. On to the next one. I think the word crazy was a big hint there. Crazy in love. Correct. Next round. This song was my mum's ringtone for a few years, so I would recognize it from a single note. We have 10 rounds, so I fast forward to the final round. Our timer turns into a nice question mark once animation. Our timer turns into a nice question mark animation once it's finished, then into a next button. When the answer is chosen, the buttons turn grey, save for the correct answer, which is green. If you get it wrong, your chosen button will turn red. Useful if you've immediately forgotten what you chose. The same logo appears across all screens for cohesiveness. Okay, last round. So far, I've got every answer right, so I'm feeling pretty confident. And damn, there's the red button showing I got the answer wrong. Oh well, we're presented with a cute trophy showing that we can go to our results screen. From here, we're given a specific user message saying bravo maestro because I got a certain score. And we can look at the leaderboard, which pulls from AWS and shows our high scores and displays in descending order. From here, we can go home or start a new game. And next slide, please. One further. Thank you. So I may not be as good as Womo Gatto, the star contestant of Sarabanda, but at least I can play again and try to improve my score. Next up is Ethan to talk about our tech stack.
Hello. So for our tech stack, we used React Native for our front end and AWS for our back end. The main reason we used React Native was cross-platform compatibility. You can run the same code on iOS and Android with only a few tweaks. We chose React Native over something like Cordova for various reasons, the largest being React Native apps perform better than Cordova apps. It uses native components, so you get better user feedback when clicking buttons. We also use AWS Amplify to create a bridge between our front-end app and our serverless API. This allows us to communicate with our API by calling functions directly in our front-end code. This is a great alternative for REST APIs, as you can call the functions you need directly, rather than looking up endpoints and what they do. We integrated GraphQL to store users in a NoSQL database as our data wasn't relational. GraphQL is ideal when you only need data in a particular shape. In our case, our leaderboard only needed username and a score. Overall, React Native is a good way to reach a large audience across many platforms while ensuring a fast-performing app. Next slide, please. AWS was difficult to implement, and it nearly beat us. Like El Tigre, when he came close to defeating the amazing Wilmer Gatto, we came out on top. Next up, we have Ikra, who's going to talk about our team dynamics.
As a group, we used Agile-inspired practices. Next slide, please. For example, breaking down tasks into bite-sized, smaller tasks. Also, we had daily stand-ups, updates with our Kanban Trello board, and used Figma, as well as the use of GitHub for version and branch control. It was essential that we prioritized our minimum viable product in order to meet realistic deadlines, in order to leave room for extra features. We are actually all studying remotely, so we were in constant communication via Zoom and Slack, rotating pair programming and committing work on GitHub with detailed commit messages. With patience, perseverance, and a whole lot of fun, we are incredibly proud of what we have achieved in the last 8 days. I'll now pass you over to Andrea, who will give you a deeper insight into the making of the app itself.
Thanks, Ikra. Hi, everyone. Melodia has been a fun ride. We only had 8 days, so we had to channel all the energy of Enrico Papi, an eccentric host of Sarabanda, as you can see from the gifts. The setbacks of our vision and our app was actual vision against the product, because we had to find the right balance of what was doable in the given period of time. We had to kind of resize the original idea to make the MVP more doable. For example, we removed the multiplayer from the MVP to have firstly a fully functional solo mode. Another issue that we had was spiking technologies, mainly because we had lots of available alternatives. And testing few options led us to the perfect choices. As Ethan mentioned, we carefully chose our tech stack, like React Native over Cordova, or any other language working in a single platform like Java for Android or Swift for iOS. The multi-platform integration gave us some issues as well, because not all of us had the same devices. I didn't have an Android device, so we had to use external support like emulators and constant knowledge sharing. We did support each other a lot, and we did send tons of screenshots each other to show where we are up to. AWS setting and implementation has been difficult. It's been a learning curve, really, because master it wasn't the easiest thing to do, but once we did it, it was amazing how all of the things they really gave us the opportunity to do. Lots of potential there. We actually test different technology that AWS was offering us, like a Cognito, ADS, Aurora, and few others, before we end up using GraphQL for our final product. And finally, perfect the final style, find the right balance of all the things that we imagined at the beginning of our vision with what we actually did. So we had to try a different solution, a combination, before we were 100% sure with our in-tune design. Given extra time, we would have implemented lots of the ideas and things that we would love to see in our Melodia app, like make it easier changing songs and playlists, because at the moment it's possible to be done just from the editor. Introducing easy and hard mode for different times and song listening and guessing time, as well as a fully multi-platform support, where iOS at the moment needs some polishing. And finally, the biggest challenge that we couldn't bear, but we are super excited to think about it, is multiplayer mode, where we can have rooms and hosting where you can play it in a party game mode. I want to finally thank my teammates for the hard work and the passion show. That was Melodia. Feel free to ask any question. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely fantastic, everyone. What a fun app. The whole thing is music to my ears. I want to ask the first question, the question on everyone's lips: how do we watch Sarabanda?
Well, Andrea sent me a link to it on YouTube, and that is what I'm going to be watching all weekend. Like, it's the maddest show. It looks amazing.
It looks incredible. I imagine that's what we'll all be doing with our Friday evenings. Thank you for introducing that to us. I'll now see if there are any more highbrow questions out there. We have got one about the styling, just in general. How did you get it to look so lovely?
Oh, that's so nice. Me and Ikra, we worked on the styling, and I find that so fun. Like, that's some of my favorite aspects. And Lottie animations were a big help. They're my new favorite discovery. I hadn't heard of them before doing this project, but now I want to make my own, like, get on in Illustrator or something and make my own. And generally, we just found SVGs and we did it all ourselves.
I can officially say Juliet is front end queen. 100%.
Thank you, Ikra.
Amazing. We have a question in the room, apparently. Over to you.
What would you say the most challenging thing about getting those little music clips in was?
Sure. So we got our songs from the Spotify API, and how it works is you need to play the audio files locally. So there's a lot of async issues where the timer stops, and that was a whole couple of days for us just solving problems and working on bugs.
I remember there was an issue where we realized that some of the data didn't have preview URLs. So for a while we were like searching through every individual song to work out which one didn't. Oh no, and then I remember you like very nicely mapped through them to find out which ones had URLs for us very easily. So yeah, there was kind of a learning curve, but
it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think your whole app demonstrates the fun that you've had over the past 3 weeks. Really,
had a lot of laughs.
Excellent,
especially with those Sarabanda gifts.
Hilarious.
Fantastic. Have we got any more questions either in the room or through the chat? Where can we watch this TV show? Yeah, the most important question. YouTube will be there.
Yeah, you need to add to YouTube. Unfortunately, it's not live anymore. Sorry.
I mean, they need to bring it back. Clearly.
I know. I know.
Oh, you mentioned in the future you'd like to have a multiplayer mode. I can see myself getting very competitive with this sort of app. How have you envisaged implementing that, can I ask?
Cool. So our multiplayer mode was inspired by existing games like Kahoot or Jackbox. So you have lots of users and they join by room code where one user hosts a game. So in the future, we can implement like custom playlists, and maybe you can choose songs based on a certain artist or something. Yeah, that's about it.
I will be keeping an eye out for the next edition of the app. Fantastic. Fantastic, everyone. Can we give Team Melodia another round of applause? Well done, everyone. Well done. Well done to all the teams we have seen in this session. Please come back at 4 o'clock for the final 3 presentations of the day. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Perfect.
Welcome back, everyone, and good afternoon. We are finally here, part 3 of the epic trilogy that is this graduation showcase. We've had 6 great project groups, and we've got 3 more fantastic to come. So I'll leave it over to Team Look to present their great app, Coin Chaser.
Hello, quick introduction. I'm Mike from Team Lux. This is John, Kylie, and we've got Alana, who's remote at the moment. We're inspired to prove ourselves by learning new concepts very, very quickly. And to prove that, we wanted to write an app that was so different than anything else we'd ever learned about before in the course. And we wanted to learn how to implement GUIs as well. A multiplayer game was what we chose with totally new tech stacks. This is the game in play, and I'll hand you over to John.
So we're going to take a look at the game now, the demo. So here on the first screen, you can log in as a user, choose your avatar, either host a new game, or join an existing game. You take the room key and you give it to your friends who can paste it in, and then the host will accept your friends into the game. When you start the game, as you can see here, we've got a chat feature, so you can speak to your friends whilst you're playing. The concept of the game is a simple one. So you've got your character, which is controlled either by the arrows on the screen or by the arrows on the keyboard, has to move towards the box and find the coin to get a point. The first person to 10 points wins. Not all of the boxes have coins in them. Some of them have power-ups. So, for example, the slime, which decreases your speed, or the rocket, which will increase your speed. It also doesn't have a coin in. The next level, it resets and randomizes the positions. So here also we've displayed the text above, like John got the rocket, for a bit more user feedback. So here we can see Kylie climbing up the rankings, and she's magically got to 9 points, one away from winning. And when she wins, you can see Kylie won the game, and we can congratulate her in the user chat.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so tech choices. Backend logic, we chose whether to either use explicit backend acting as a host with each client accessing data, or only one app that acts as host and client. We had to make that choice. So after spiking tech stacks, we had a clear direction. So I'll hand you over to Iona, who's on remote at the moment.
Hi, everyone. A very important part of our project, and of any project, as we all experienced, I guess, is organization and planning. For our planning process, we used Figma with screen layout on how we wanted the game to look like, and plan the React components and states accordingly. Next slide, please. We also used task management and agile methods like daily stand-ups, meetings, and Kanban board, in our case, Trello board, as the slide displays, to organize our work. Next slide, please. And for our base code, we used JavaScript to create our app and React.js for the front end of our project. Main reason we decided, after all, to go with React was the experience we gained from the course, but also because it's simple yet powerful, component-based, support server-side, mobile support, and it is extensible. Thank you all very much for your attention, and we continue with Kylie.
Easy to play as you set it up. So jumping Firebase. With Firebase, it's as easy as asking for a unique ID as a host. And then as a host, you create a new room and a unique ID. If you're a client, you can use that same unique ID from the host to knock on a room. Either you knock on a room and ask to be added as a player, then the host can add you as a player, being ready to start the game. And all this was possible simply because of Firebase authentication real-time database rules. This was a clear winner for us, as it removed a lot of the complexity, time, and effort needed from us. Now to John.
So during our spiking phase, we looked at various different technologies for rendering the characters or sprites on the screen. Our aim was to make a simple 2D game, so therefore we discounted libraries such as 3JS, which we found were more designed for creating 3D graphics. Two main contenders that came up were Phaser and Pixie.js. Phaser is an entire framework, whereas Pixie.js is a rendering library. Both technologies work with WebGL whilst providing a canvas fallback for devices that don't support WebGL. With Phaser, we found that there were many plugins available, whereas Pixie is an open source library, free open source library. This is one of the reasons why we decided to use Pixie, along with the fact it renders quite fast. We encountered some challenges trying to integrate Pixie.js with React. The main issue we had was there was fairly little information on how to do this. We overcame this by watching various tutorials online and setting up a practice project ourselves for proof of concept. Eventually, we also managed to find an NPM package called React Pixie that allowed us to use Pixie and React in the way that we wanted to.
We wanted the game to be played worldwide, from somebody in one part of the world playing with somebody else, and other groups of people as well. So we had to look at real-time positioning and to get that data transferred really, really quick, well, immediately, basically. For that, we looked at WebSockets and Socket.io and Google Firebase real-time database. They were the two winners to decide upon. At the end of it, they were both very, very similar. WebSockets decided it needed its own back-end writing, whereas Google Firebase already had it. And of course, we'd looked at the authentication system, and that was through Google as well, through Firebase. So it started to come together that we put the two together as one package. Summary of the final choices is all there on the screen. Firebase, Pixie, so on, so all visible there. The challenges. There were many. One of them, particularly challenging, was combining key down and key up functions with the React.js, and also Firebase event listeners. That was quite complicated because everything's all listening together. Quite complicated to sort out, but obviously we did. And then making the Pixie play screen and characters responsive to screen size. So as you zoom in and out, the Pixie screen and all the characters change size as well and reposition themselves in exactly where they were originally. It was a massive complication, of which I have to say was solved at probably 1:30 in the morning by Kylie. And the styling was all done by John the Wizard Stanley, which yes, it took some doing, but we're very, very proud of him for that. Future possibilities, we'd like to introduce trivial style questions to win a coin, so that when you actually get to the box, it opens up and you've got a question to answer to actually win the coin, if we'd have had more time, obviously. And more modifiers in the boxes as well. There's a number of things you can add to that. Base code has a functionality to change the maximum number of boxes already implemented. It just needs the code writing for the future. And that's it. We hope you enjoyed playing our coin chaser game.
Well done, team. I love how much fun you could see when you were playing the game, and I can see how much time that must have taken away.
It did.
Just playing it. While we wait for any questions to come in, one I have is, how did you manage without a back-end server, and how might you think about implementing one in the future?
We considered it, but with the Firebase system, we didn't actually need it. So everything was on the front end effectively, and it was split basically with an if statement. So if the UID of the person on the screen matched the user ID, so the room ID matched the user ID, then they were the host of the game. Simple as that. And then we had an if statement, then execute this code. If they're not, don't execute that code. So it's literally 80% shared and 20% to the host is through an if statement.
Lovely. Any questions from the room?
Yeah, did you have any issues with like finding documentation of all the different libraries that you're using?
Well, sorry, go on. You go first. You want?
There is a few. React Pixie, like Joanna and John mostly had, and John just spoke about it. Yeah, like you want Pixie to render, but then you have a render tick. And that's the thing. Just like remembering that we have callback and that's not immediate, it's async. The same thing on render tick. So you cannot set a new state and expect it to be set straight away. So you got to remember that your next render tick, Pixie.js would know, yes, that changed. But wait, did you just yet? You're supposed not just render ticks, async was very difficult. So we constantly had to like remember to use effects. We even created our news context. We used many packages to implement. So adding listeners to the DOM, it was all like, either implement an NPM package, which we actually don't know is a black box, but it works, or implement ourselves with use context, use effect, new state, and like, all right, let's go for this. And it takes a day.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? No, I have one. What challenge it, like everyone knows game apps need to look slick. So how did you get it to look good?
Our wizards only, mainly.
Well, I guess with these things, like I think a lot of us have experienced, the styling usually gets done at the end. And as a result, during the development process, we implementing the CSS, the target is just to get something on the screen so we can work with it and get the functionality to work. So come towards the end of the 8 days of coding that we had, and the CSS was a bit disorganized. So I'd say like in the future, we would look at things like the block element modifier, naming convention, and maybe SAS as well, which could make it a bit more organized. And if we had that at the start, it might be easier to implement the CSS and make it a bit more logical to do. So that would be one improvement I would make.
Nice, lovely. I also want to point out there is QI code. Sorry, team, but if you want to, it sometimes works, as is the case with apps built in 8 days. So without further ado, let's give them a round of applause, and we'll have a little break before the next team. Welcome back, everyone. What a day, what a load of great projects. How different could they be? And we have another brilliant one up for you with Team Cyberdrip and their app Find 5.
Hello everyone, my name is Dan and this is Find 5. Are you football mad but none of your friends want to kick about? Or maybe you're the next Ronaldo but you're surrounded by a sea of Phil Joneses. Over 2 million people in England alone play football regularly. We wanted to create an app that would seamlessly connect these people, all with one common interest, football. Find 5 is a football-centered social app which allows users to connect with like-minded people on things like skill, age, and availability. No one wants to turn up to a five-a-side game only to realise everyone else is prime Messi. Meanwhile, you have no idea what the offside rule is. Find 5 aims to save you from this embarrassment. Upon registration, you can create your own profile and find other players and teams using our map feature. If you can't find anything you fancy, you can even create your own team and search the map for players that you think might be a good fit to your team. Now you have a brief overview of what Find 5 is all about. I'll hand you over to Kiz, who's going to give you a full walkthrough of the app.
So next, everyone. So I'm going to walk you through the app here. So we're going to log in and put our email address in. So we're sign in as Jack. So that's his email address, and just put his password in. Please don't use that anywhere else. It's not going to work. So then this is our home page. So we can go into our profile and we can see Jack's details here, all his bios, his availability, all the teams he belongs to. And let's say Jack wants to change some things. So he's had a really good weekend. He's feeling really good about himself. And he's going to say, you know what, instead of saying, I'm a pretty good striker, let's update that to I'm the best striker. Okay, there we go. And he's more free now. So we can say, yeah, we're available Saturday and Sunday. There you go. Click submit. And that will be reflected in the changes there. So that's how the edit feature works. Now he wants to know, find other players and teams in the area. So let's go to the map feature here, search for other teams and players. As you can see, they're displayed on a map. That's his team there. And we can look for other players here. Jack himself. There's another player there. Level, not bad. Let's keep on looking. There you go, Maria. She's a pro, so looks pretty good. and she's Kyle Walker's sister, so that's a done deal there. And yeah, so let's add her to our team. That looks pretty good. So we're gonna go into my teams page now, where we manage all our teams. So we'll go to Team Cyberdrip on the teams page. Dan runs this team. Jack runs this team, so he can just search for anybody and add them. So we're gonna search Maria by her username here, like that, and search, and there she is. Send her an invite, and she should pop up in the members team list. And it says the request is pending, so Maria has to accept there. So we just go back. We can just quickly refresh to see if she's on there. She has not accepted it. She's playing hard to get. So we will then see Maria's point of view. So next slide, please. Cool. So we're logged in as Maria now. So we go to her profile just to check it's her. There you go, Maria here. And you can see on the requests, you've got Team Cyberdrip, where she can accept or reject. So it's looks pretty good. Yeah, we'll go in teams. She's not in any team because she hasn't accepted it yet. So Maria's saying, yeah, you know what? Team Cyberdrip looks pretty good. So we're going to accept that. Boom. We're inside my teams now. So she's part of the Team Cyberdrip. She can now manage her membership via the Teams app, Teams page. So we just go into team and click on the team we want to go to right there. And we can get all the information about the team, who's in the team, and who's accepted and who's still pending yet. So that's pretty cool. Now, Maria's having second thoughts. She's just had a look at the team list. She's like, a lot of newbies here. You know, it's not to her level. So you know what? We're going to leave the team. There you go. Bye-bye. And she's gone. No more Cyberdrip, but she's now no longer part of any teams. But she can still search for other teams in the area, and more will pop up as more people start using Find 5. So that's pretty much it from the app demo. We'll pass on to Jack, who will talk you through the tech stack. Go on, Jack.
What we chose and why. We built our app primarily in TypeScript, and that's because we like to use static typing, and we wanted to experiment with static typing without getting too far away from our sort of JavaScript comfort zone. We also thought that the type functionality of TypeScript would help keep our code more consistent and reduce bugs because we were all working remotely. We chose React Native for our front end for a variety of reasons. We already had some experience with React, which made that a lot easier. And also, React makes it easy to build an app that can be used on a lot of different devices. And our team was using a mixture of Linux, iOS, and Android. React Native also allowed us to easily integrate map functionality using React Native Maps, which was something that we came across in our spiking phase and really wanted to have a play with. We enjoyed using Expo as well, which allowed us to view the app on our phones or on emulators as we were designing it and live update, which is fantastic for pair programming remotely. We chose Firebase because it worked nicely with React Native and Expo, and also because it allowed us to do everything in one place. We could use Firebase authentication to authenticate users and Cloud Firestore to store all our data. We also originally wanted to use Cloud Functions to listen for changes in the database, but decided not to due to time constraints. We did look at using MongoDB originally, but Firebase looked easier to integrate because it had all these features in one place. And it also saved us a lot of time on setup because we didn't need to build and test our own API. Now I'll pass you over to Maria, who'll talk you through some of the challenges we faced.
Thanks, Jack. Taking time at the start of the project to spike tech meant we were confident it was suitable for our app. However, we did run into a few difficulties. Having a mixture of Linux, iOS, and Android devices among our group meant that not all of the proposed stack was working on all of our devices. So what we had to do is we had to make sure that between the four of us, we had enough tech to make sure that the development of the app and also testing of its performance was possible between the four of us. With all of us working away on separate GitHub branches, merge conflicts were inevitable. We managed to get through them by merging regularly as a team and also having roundups at the end of the day, in addition to our morning stand-ups, to discuss what we've built and what might cause merge conflicts. While we enjoyed using Firebase for the features it offered, using Cloud Firestore proved challenging initially, as we needed to find a way to organize player and team information in a non-relational database. For that, we used collections, documents, and sub-collections, and structured the database to make queries more streamlined. As our project evolved, so have the requirements for the data we held and retrieved for our teams and players. That caused errors on the front end, which was built to work with the initial data structure. This was resolved by having good communication within the team to discuss changes taking place, and by implementing a seed function to easily update development data as required. If we could have the next slide, please. Given more time, we would have developed Find5 further by utilizing Firebase cloud messaging to add messaging functionality. We would have also added location services to enhance the search function and allowed users to upload their own user pics. Going forward, we see Find5 scaling up by allowing teams to form leagues with leaderboards and upcoming fixture notifications, as well as adding game planning functionality for the team admin to allocate positions for the upcoming games using a drag and drop tool. That's it from us. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, let us know.
Congratulations. What a professional looking app. Although I feel really sorry for Phil Jones. Poor Phil Jones. One question I have for you. How did you find making the jump from JavaScript to TypeScript?
It wasn't too bad, really. Like, a lot of the syntax is very similar. If anything, it made it a bit easier for us in a way, because it was so strict with the static typing. Like, we needed to get everything right. And like, as I sort of mentioned in there, that type functionality did help us all keep our code consistent. So yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Lovely. Seeing the benefits of that TypeScript can bring.
I think as well, like it's very clear how useful it would be to like a bigger organization, or if you wanted to scale up the app, it would become way more useful.
Absolutely. Any questions from the floor? Hi.
When are you going on Dragon's Den?
We're actually taking our first investor pictures now.
Yeah. But actually, like, of all the technologies you use, is there any that you'd like to explore a bit more in a future project, or was there something that you didn't end up using that you would like to go and look at?
Yeah, we were looking at other sort of databases like MongoDB and stuff like that. We'd like to explore some other non-SQL databases, and also look into sort of like cloud functions or like Lambda functions, or like what AWS offers to listen for changes in the database and update it. So it would just clear, for example, if you have two tables, if a linked data sits somewhere else, that cloud function can just go and delete that. So that would be pretty good. Something we could look at in the future. Yeah. Thank you.
I have another question, and this is one for everyone to think about, but you're here, so you can answer it. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. You know a lot more than you did 8 days ago. What would you do differently should you approach making this app again?
I mean, one thing I would say is I wouldn't bother trying to download Android Simulator. It's absolutely massive, and Expo basically does the same thing. So yeah, that's one thing I would say. I don't know if anyone else has got anything else.
I think we were actually pretty lucky, and yeah, like apart from the initial tech setup, we had a fairly smooth journey. So I think it's the credit to all of the team, and like I wouldn't really change much if I had to do this again.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we change if we did it again, I think, would be if we had more time to plan. Like as we were creating the app, we just like sort of discovered that the way all these different objects interacted didn't really fit with the structure of our data. So we did need to change that data structure quite a lot. If we'd had more time to plan, then maybe we wouldn't have had to keep changing things like that during the building phase.
Absolutely. I mean, 8 days is not a long time for anyone to do anything like this, and these things come up. Any other questions, either from the floor or from Lee? Be honest.
No, I think you might know the answer to that one.
Did you use any type?
Wow.
Any
once.
Not once. Any.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is.
We might have used it a couple of times.
Might-
Maybe once or
Yeah,
twice.
might
yeah,
have
once
done,
or
yeah.
twice.
Once or twice.
A couple of times, but you can always go back and refactor.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Right.
that's what we're doing
Given more
tonight.
time, we would have got rid of all the
Ah.
menus from TypeScript.
That's music to my ears. Thank you. Lovely jubbly. Nothing else from anyone. Big round of applause for Cyberdrip and their lovely app. We'll be back in a few minutes once the final team have had chance to get set up. See you soon. Lovely people, welcome back. We have one more group left. What an excellent day it's been. And I would like to introduce to you the final project group, Mandatory Fun. They're a fan of fun. And here is their lovely app, Achieve.
If you could just go to the first slide, please. Thank you. Hi, I'm Lee, and together with Chris, John, and Harry, we have designed the app Achieve. Achieve is a social goal-making app that allows users to create goals, add their friends, and track each other's progress. We all set goals for ourselves, whether it be improving fitness, working on a new skill, or attempting a new diet. Equally, we sometimes fail to achieve these goals that we set to ourselves due to a lack of motivation, support, and sometimes willpower. Achieve aims to resolve that by utilising human social tendencies to deter that diminishing willpower. If you commit to a goal with your friends and you have the sense of achieving together, you're more likely to maintain that progress towards achieving that goal. And whilst there are currently numerous social media platforms available to us, as well as activity tracking apps, as far as we could tell, there currently isn't a platform where we can create groups with our friends to post updates, encourage each other, and track our progress together. And that's why we made Achieve, and we believe it has the potential to help many people to achieve more together. I'd like to pass you over to John, who's going to give you a little demo of the app. Thank you.
Hi everyone, as Lee said, I'll be running you through our app. You can press play. So we begin our journey on our homepage, which will then navigate you to the first fork in the user journey, split between the new users and the returning users, as you can see here. So we'll go with the journey of the new user first. The app starts by providing a brief description of how it works. You can create a goal, choose a category, invite your friends, post updates, and track your progress. We'll go more into this on the next page. It'll prompt you to enter a username, followed by a password to register. This will then send you to the goal creation page. Here we can select a category. We've got health, fitness, skill, social, and career. For the sake of this app, we've gone with fitness, specifically the activity cycling, with the plan to expand more in the future. So we enter our activity, enter the miles per week, and then submit a completion date. This brings the new user to the final page of their setup journey and greets them with some words of encouragement before navigating them to the goal feed. Now, rather than show you an empty feed, we'll now see from the perspective of a user who's been using the app, in this case, the Achieve team. At the top of the app, we can see the progress towards completion date. We can also see updates and pictures from our friends on the feed, just to keep each other up to date with how everyone's getting on. And this is all fetched from the back end as the app renders. To make a post, we can go to the top right of the app and press the post button. This will toggle a new window. Here we can enter some text, such as, "I think I got lost." Then we can select our photo, enter our miles completed, and submit. This will then update the post to the top of the feed. We can also track everyone's progress on the Progress tab, which is at the bottom right on the navigation bar. Here we will see each other's miles completed, total miles, and also their week streak. Finally, we can post comments on each other's updates to share some words of encouragement and support using the comment icon on the bottom right of the post. As you can see, the guys commented on the post I made earlier during the recording. And that's it for the app demo presentation. I'll pass you over to Chris, who will cover our tech stack. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So, okay, I'm going to talk briefly about our tech stack. And to start with, I'll talk about our backend, where we used Express, Firebase, Firestore, and TypeScript. During the planning phase, it became clear that we had lots of ideas and there was a huge amount of potential for our app to scale. But at the same time, we didn't know what structure our data would take in the future. So we decided we'll go with a non-relational database. And after researching a few options, Firebase suited our needs the most. It's easy to set up and it gives us the flexibility we would require. We also decided to use TypeScript. As you heard, it's got a continuously increasing popularity with tech companies, and its advantages lend themselves really well to group projects. With it being statically typed, it reduces the amount of bugs you're going to have in your code, and the readability is a great benefit to have when you've got multiple people using the same code base. For our front-end framework, we went with Svelte Native. During the tech spiking phase, we did a lot of research into Svelte, and we really enjoyed the features it provided. Stuff like the way it managed states, the readability of the code is really clear. Some of the syntactic sugar it provided, like its conditional rendering, was really fun to use. So yeah, sorry. The next, but yes, in the planning phase, as we fleshed out the idea of an app, it became clear that it wouldn't be a web app and much more suited a mobile app. So the logical step was to try Svelte Native, as this would allow us to benefit from the features offered by Svelte, but it also provided us with the component library of native scripts, so we could develop our app for mobile. And yeah, that's a brief overview of our tech. I'll now hand you over to Harry, who will talk about some of the challenges we faced and what we have learned during our project.
Thank you very much, Chris. So apart from the usual issues and one incident where I may have nearly deleted the whole project yesterday, we worked through some quite big challenges across our entire project. At some points, the only solace we could find was having dependable teammates. Thankfully, our efficient early stage planning meant that we had a slight head start on our tech spiking. However, things weren't as plain sailing as they may have seemed. Up until now on the course, we've only had to make web applications, and we've been used to the responsiveness of the browser when we've been making changes. So one of the biggest setbacks was the lack of predictability in NativeScript and the way that our Svelte native compiles. This meant that it often took far longer than it should have done to make the simplest changes to our layout. Along the way, we found out the order in which we built our app was also quite important. Whilst we had our navigation nailed down in day 2, we should have set up our user authentication at the start as well. But by the time we'd reached that, we decided to prioritize other things like the functionality and feel of our app. But having that authentication set up and working would have influenced a lot of where we could have been by that point. One of our key decision points during the project was when we reached a fork in the road between creating a PWA and a native app. We decided we'd like the ability to implement push notifications when we wanted to. However, by the end of this project, it's a feature that we quite didn't get around to adding in. So it's definitely something that we'd want to put into Achieve 2.0. By far, though, our biggest lesson learned is around how valuable properly documented and supported tech is. A variety of reasons, such as the lack of support for Svelte Native and the lack of component libraries that actually reliably work, meant that we had to custom create many of our components, which took a great deal of our time up. For example, one of the features we wanted to focus on as being real key for us was our progress page. We'd intended to include graphs and charts as our backend was prepared to provide such information. However, because of the lack of support for one of the NativeScript plugins, we found it just impossible to implement what we really wanted to in this relatively new Svelte native environment. Instead, we had to program our own basic progress bar, write functions ourselves that adjust the column width dynamically, as well as the nuances between Svelte native and NativeScript, as opposed to say something like the really well supported React Native. It's safe to say that if we were to build an Achieve Mark II, it'd be built very differently from our Mark I. And of course, with a little extra time thrown in, really wouldn't hurt. This was a very good lesson in project management. I feel fortunate to have been paired with some very capable and brilliant developers. Now we've finished the project and have had some time to reflect on our past 2 weeks together. We feel it's really highlighted the reason why we made the app. Doing difficult things on your own is a lot harder than when you have a great team to collaborate with. So thank you very much for your time and for listening to our presentation. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our app. We welcome any questions.
Well done, mandatory fun. Oh, didn't mean to rhyme them, but I did. What an on-topic app. I can see many people using it, especially in the current climate. We've never had any project groups use Svelte before, let alone Svelte Native. And you mentioned that you tried to use some plugins, but were unable to. What were they, and what were the issues?
When we were doing the tech spiking, we found that well, prior to that, we didn't even know what NativeScript was. But after discovering it, we found that there was a whole library of plugins available. We could implement graphs, charts, and other kind of like data visualizations. But when it actually came to trying to implement those, we found that a lot of the documentation was tailored towards Vue and Angular, and there was no support for Svelte native at all. And we weren't quite capable of translating how it works in those two environments into our app. So we did have to, as Harry discussed, settle for quite a simple bar. But we feel the app's got a lot of potential. And I think if we were to start again tomorrow, we'd probably just use a different framework and recreate it from scratch and implement all the stuff that we think we could do.
Or you could make those libraries, those plugins. Now you know what they want you to do. That could be your next project.
I think because of the youth behind Svelte Native, there's definitely so much room for it to grow. And if we were to implement those kind of things, I think it would help the growth of Svelte Native like exponentially, and the more support that would be best. Yeah.
Absolutely. People who use it tend to love it. I can imagine one Douglas Hallowell having a whale of a time at the moment. Any questions from the floor? Yes, Nadia.
What was your most satisfying moment of the project?
Just 30 seconds ago when we finished. I think in all seriousness now, like we did a lot of work outside of Northcoders hours.
Yeah.
And I think the satisfying stuff was when we'd each work on something and show it to each other the next day, and it looked more like an app. And then the next day it looked even more like an app, because at first it didn't. So yeah, I'd say it's probably those moments when things actually work and look like they're supposed to.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of positive feedback in the team. Like you said, if we went and split off and worked on something solo, you'd get a lot of positive feedback when you showed the team.
Yeah.
And in the last day or two, when we tied it all together, that was probably the best moment for me once it started to look how we envisioned. So
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely all comes together quite last minute. Any more questions from anyone? No, I'll put the same. Oh, I'm going to be cruel. Lee, Barrett's question, how many any's in your TypeScript?
Not a single one.
Oh.
Yeah,
you can check the repo.
I will admit, though, we did intend on using it for the front end, but we bottled it, didn't we? We just had too much tweaking and things to do, because the NativeScript preview app, it takes like a minute to load each time, and that's just for the slightest of layout changes. And when we'd implemented a function that didn't work, the app just simply didn't work and didn't tell us why. Maybe TypeScript would have solved that, actually, thinking about it. Maybe that's the whole point, isn't it? But at the time, it made more sense to focus on just getting the layout right. Yeah, so that's what we did.
Nice. Prioritizing. 8 days is not long.
Back end, they were on it on the back end.
Absolutely have to do it.
It's not going on my CV just yet.
Another great app. Before we round off with a round of applause, I just want to say congratulations to everyone. Such a great group of projects, so many different tech, so many different ideas. I don't think we've ever had this variety of projects before. So big well done. I know how hard you've all worked on it. For you, those of you who are watching, our next graduation showcase is on the 24th of September on a Friday. So put it in your diaries. And let's see what the next group can make. So well done, everyone. The hard work is done for now till Monday. Enjoy your evening and give yourselves all a massive round of applause.